September 9th, 1968. Greetings from Cu Chi, South Vietnam. Well, I finally found time to make the tape recording that I wanted, or I promised you for such a long time. It's only 4 days now that I had the tape recorded. First night that I had it, we had a power failure over here, and the power was out to about 10 o'clock. When it finally came on, it was so late already, and I was so tired that I decided I'd wait till the next day. The next day it happened that I had guard duty, and I couldn't make it then. And the next day, which was Saturday, we tried to put the thing together, adjust it to the proper speed of the current that's going over here, and unfortunately the power failed again, and the tape recorder is apart all over the table, and we had to wait for it to be put back together, which was about 3 hours later. And then again, I unsuccessfully tried to make a tape. Sunday, or yesterday, I was just about ready to make a tape, and the first sergeant comes into the room, and he says, "Does anybody here want to be a blood donor? They're in desperate need of O positive blood." So I looked at my dog tags, and I realized that I had O positive blood. I volunteered to go, so there was a tape for that night. That blood transfusion wasn't too bad. I was a little bit shaky and nervous to find out how it would feel, but actually it seems like they numb you up pretty good in the arm there, and you really don't feel the thing. It took about 4 or 5 minutes, I understand, to take the amount of blood out of you. And I feel this way: if they need it, I'll give it. I'm lucky to be where I am, and I really feel sorry for those guys that are out there in the field. Well, now you know why it took me so long to get the tapes out to you. Well, I guess I'll start off from when I left Newark that day in September, or I should say July 2nd this year. It was a nice trip. We enjoyed one good meal, I should say, supper on the plane. And the plane ride, which lasted about 5 hours, was 5 or 6 hours, was very interesting to me since I never flew before. Our route took us over Buffalo and the Niagara Falls, but we didn't get to see them because it was an overcast day. Clouds were hanging rather low over the falls, and we just couldn't get to see them. We flew over Canada, but I did see the Great Salt Lakes. And, of course, finally we landed at San Francisco. I got there, I flagged down a taxi cab, and I went to a hotel in San Francisco. San Francisco, I don't particularly care for it. It's a big city. It's not an exceptionally dirty city either. And while I was going to the hotel, I also passed Candlestick Park. That's where the San Francisco Giants play, and they were in town at the time. And I was surprised to see that there weren't too many people in the stands. But from what the taxi cab driver said, it gets cold up there every night, even though it was the middle of summer. And he says each year the crowds are dwindling because nobody wants to go out there and freeze to death, really. So I finally got to San Francisco, went upstairs into my room for the night, went down and got some ice cream, had the sandwiches and cake that you sent me, and I made the best out of the night. And I got to bed about 9 o'clock their time, 1 o'clock our time. And the next morning I got up bright and early, about 9 o'clock. Slept like a baby all the way through. I went, had some breakfast, and then I was on my way to Oakland, California by taxi again. That's about the only way you can get around in those cities. The bus lines were on strike at the time. And I got to Oakland, and I registered in, and they processed us in about 4 hours. And that evening, I made friends with this one other guy. Didn't have anybody to talk to. And we went to the movies, and I saw a movie. Some kind of Western. I don't really remember the name. It was pretty good. It was wasted a night that way. Next morning, I had KP at 5:30. It only lasted 8 o'clock because somebody came in and said, "Okay, guys, you're excused from KP because you're going to be shipped out to Vietnam this morning." So we happily got off KP and went to the place where we were supposed to get the information on what to do. Well, we took our clothes and everything. We moved over to this one big platform. Not platform, there's one big building. It was like a big store, a big storage area. And we stayed there for about 10 hours until they processed us all in with our tickets and our baggage, how much it weighed, how much we weighed. And finally, about 1 o'clock in the morning, we left from, I believe it's Andrews Air Force Base in Oakland, California. And from Oakland, that was 1 o'clock in the morning, and we flew via a United, I take that back, it's a Continental Airlines aircraft. There were about 200 guys on board. It was a very nice plane, and we were on our way to Hawaii. We got to Hawaii nice and early. The sun was just about coming up. We had also a meal on a plane. We landed at Honolulu International Airport, and there we stayed for about 15 minutes, just enough time for the work crews to fuel up the plane. And then we were on our way to the Philippines. Now, this was the longest leg of our flight. We were going to stay cooped up in that little plane for the next 11 hours. But everybody seemed to catch a few winks here and there, and we slept. We had 2 meals and 2 snacks on the plane going there. And before we knew it, we wound up in the Philippines. And when we got off the plane, boy, we really felt the heat and the humidity over there. We stayed in the Philippines at an Air Force airport there. I don't recall the name. I think it was Davies Airport. And we stayed there for an hour, and then we were off to Vietnam. That 2 hours from Philippines to Vietnam was some ride. Seemed like the shortest 2 hours I ever spent in my life. And everybody was starting to get just a little bit nervous. They were coming to Vietnam. They were going to spend their first night in Vietnam, first day and first night in Vietnam, and everybody's a little bit nervous. We got off the plane, everybody starts looking around. They don't know what to say, what to do. But when we got off the plane, we were escorted into a bus. We landed, by the way, in Ben Hoa Airport. And then we went by bus to Long Binh, where we stayed the night. Next morning, they had a formation of all the guys that just came in country. And there were about 400 or 500 guys there. And they were calling the names out of the guys and the places that they were going. And my name just happened to be called. And they said I was going to Camp Alpha, Tan Son Nhut. And I was wondering, boy, what the heck is that? I never heard of the place. But I wound up it was a detail. It was a detail that was rather enjoyable. I saw a lot. They put us on a from Long Binh to Tan Son Nhut. And going there, we passed through the city of Saigon, which was something to see, especially if you've only been here for less than a day. When we finally arrived at Tan Son Nhut Airport, and our detail was to load and unload baggage. on an airplane for men that were coming or going back from R&R. We only worked for about an hour that day and an hour the next day. It was really a very easy detail. I was happy to get it. Well, the next day we came back via Saigon again, and we saw the city again and saw a lot of wild things that we would have to get used to after a while. Then finally we came back to Long Bin, and there I stayed for 2 days doing detail work. I worked in the transportation department one day. I loaded and unloaded baggage again, and then the second day I was a helper in the supply room handing out sheets and pillowcases to the officers as they were coming into their quarters into the country. The next morning I was patiently waiting to see if my name would be called out, and it was. And they called out Alan Benko, 25th Infantry. And when I heard that, I said to myself, oh my God, no, not the infantry. But then I grabbed my stuff and I was ready to go. And they took us by bus back to Benoit Airport. And there we stayed for the day, waiting for a plane ride to Cu Chi, which is only about 15-20 miles away. We waited the whole night there, and no plane was able to take us in because they just didn't have any available at the time. So we had to wait. We went back to Long Bin, and we spent the night there again. Actually, at Long Bin, I met one friend that I had from Fort Belvoir, and he thought he missed me and I missed him, but at least we got to see each other, and it was good to see a familiar face out here. And the next morning, we left Long Bin again for Benoit, and finally we were on a plane on our way to Cu Chi. When we finally got to Cu Chi, they put us in another reception center, and there I found out that I would be a generator mechanic at the 25th Signal Battalion in Cu Chi, which is only about half a mile walk from the reception center. Well, when we got to Cu Chi, they told us that we'd have to go through 3 days of RVN, or Republic of Vietnam, training. And this I found very interesting. It was more or less a review of basic training and what we can expect in Vietnam, and how to trust the people, or really not to trust the people, and how to take care of ourselves out in the field if we ever did get sent out there. And I found it very interesting, and I enjoyed it. Finally, the day came to work in the generator shop, and being that I know very little about gasoline engines, and that's what usually breaks down on these generators, after 2 days on the job, I decided, well, this stuff just isn't for me. So I asked I told the first sergeant, I said, First Sergeant, I just don't understand anything about generators. Is there anything else available? And he told me, yes, or he wasn't too sure about anything. He said, but there's an opportunity maybe to get into this radio station, which is VHF, very high frequency. And he says, well, would you want to try and learn that? So I says, anything is better than those lousy, dirty generators. So I went there, and completely ignorant of how to operate radios and things like that. I learned slowly but surely, and it was a pretty good job, air-conditioned place. I enjoyed it while I was there, and I learned a lot too. And there I stayed for about 6 weeks. Then finally we got a new commanding officer in charge of our company, and he decided that we didn't need that many men up in the VHF tower. So he decided to cut them down a little bit, and he cut 5 guys, and I was one of them. Came as no surprise to me, being that, due to the fact that I was one of the last guys to come in there. And they sent us down to Motor Pool, where I work today, my second day there, third day there, I should say. And it wasn't too bad. I've been working in the supply room there, doing absolutely nothing for 2 days, and the first day there, they put me on a generator to clean it, and that was a waste of time, too. But the sergeant in charge of that VHF station, Sergeant Loveless, he said he thinks one of the clerks are leaving shortly for home, and he said he knows that I know how to type, at least half decently, and I'm interested in that type of work. He said he'll put in a good word for me if he can. So that I am grateful for. So who knows, in another month or two I might be working there. You never can tell. Let's see. Oh yes, let's talk a little bit about Saigon. When I went through there at one time, the first thought you get through as you walk through, go right through the city, all you see are a heck of a lot of bicycles and motorcycles and Hondas and small motorbikes. A few small cars like Volkswagen, Toyota Corona or whatever, small Japanese cars, and a lot of three-wheel bicycles that carry about 6 Vietnamese people on the back of them. And every once in a while you'll see a car here, American car here and there. I was really surprised, though, to see a Chrysler on the road, too. The people over there are, it's kind of funny. People go in the bathroom on the roads, on the side roads there, and it's an experience, believe me. One of the more One, two, three. Okay, there's one thing that I thought was a little different. We bought a little bit of Coca-Cola over here that was bottled in Saigon under the supervision of the United States government and Coca-Cola Bottling Company. The Coke back in the States is rather fizzy and sweet, but over here in Saigon, the way they make it, there is very little fizz and it's a little bit flat. It's not too good, but luckily in Cucci, where I am now, we get Coca-Cola that's bottled in California, so it tastes real good. Okay, let me give you a little description about Cucci, Vietnam. It's a post that's, let's say about 10 or 15 city blocks big. And within this post, we have a different units or divisions or battalions or whatever you want to call them. It's surrounded by bunkers, and at these bunkers, that's where we have our night guard duty at. And I'll tell you a little bit about that later. Well, where I am right now, the hospital is just across the street from our hooch or hut or barracks or whatever you want to call this place. We usually call it hooches. The hospital is right behind us. I usually go to the hospital chapel, which is only about a 2-minute walk from my hooch, although sometimes I go to the battalion hospital, or I should say the brigade hospital, which is about a mile away. We also have a post office, which is about a half a mile away, where I usually go to get my money orders that I send home regularly, I hope. And let's see, we have a beer hall right here too, where the guys can buy their beer or soda and at night buy cold hamburgers. And by the way, right after I finished taping the first side, that's where I went for a few cold hamburgers and some soda. We also have a snack bar here that's open during the day. It's not open at night because of the possibility of mortar or rocket attacks. We don't want too many people gathered in one area. So it closes at 5, but at night we have our own beer hall and the hamburgers are cold and good. Let's see, what else is there that's of interest around here? Our PX is pretty good too. We have a pretty big PX. It's about the size of Fort Belvoir's main PX, and it has quite a few things, although it lacks in certain things, like the things that I requested in my last letter. A pair of size 11.5 sneakers. They have sneakers here, but size 11.5 or size 12 they just don't get. Also a size 38 or 40 waist is hard to come by in shorts too. And I am wearing them. I'm happy to have them too. There's one other thing that I'd like to have you send me too, is the college board book that I have upstairs in the attic in one of the boxes that I packed before I left from Vietnam. Due to the fact that at night here, you don't particularly care what's on television. There's only one channel, so you have to find other means of entertainment. And I figure, well, with that class in Algebra 1 that I'm taking, correspondence course, that should take up about 2 or 3 hours a night and make the time go by a little bit quicker, and I'll learn something instead of just wasting my time here watching television or going down a beer hall and talking with the guys. But once that course is over, then I'll try and take Algebra 2 and trigonometry or geometry again, or a extra course, and then try and do a little bit better in these courses now that I can take my own time and not work at the pace that Clifton High School night school made us work at, which was a rather rapid one because you only had 31 nights and you had to learn everything in that one night that the people or the students in high school usually learn in 1 week. So that book will come in handy in between the break when I finish my algebra and after I finish algebra, and I am going to register for another course. It takes about a month for the material to come down to. If you can, I'd like for you to send me my sneakers as soon as possible. I'm not too sure, but if you can pack them, I believe the instructions say if you can pack them in a box a certain dimension, you can send them over here for $1, and it will get here fairly quickly. So I think that's your best bet to do it that way. By the way, I did enjoy the package that you sent me last time with my shorts inside. That was the main thing that I needed, and the little picture came as a pleasant surprise too, because using the canteen cups to make your Kool-Aid in isn't the best thing. Although they have some ice here now, it keeps it nice and cool. By the way, I've got still about 40 packs of Kool-Aid on me, so you can cool it with the Kool-Aid for a little while. Let's see. I got a letter from Marilyn yesterday. That came as a little surprise, too. I really didn't expect it from her. And a few days ago, I got one from Karen Antonello. I guess she must be starting her freshman year in high school. She's Dennis Antonello's sister, and I worked with her father, Howard Richardson Scale. I wrote the men down in the shop a little letter about 3 weeks ago when I had my return address on it. Evidently, Angelo took the address home and gave it to his daughter to write. And he said, she said that that's how she found out. She said she likes to write to guys in Vietnam. She writes to two other guys who she got the addresses from out of the Herald News. So I wrote her a nice little thank you letter and told her that I will keep in touch with her if she decides that she wants to write to me again. Oh, let's see, what else can I tell you? It's a good thing this is a 3 3/4 fee, because if I think if I had a 1 7/8, I'd really run out of things to say. I would appreciate it if you would ask me some questions on the tape that you send me. Maybe I can describe to you how it is over here, like what our living conditions are, how the food is, and things like that. Any question that comes to your mind, I'll try and answer it to the best of my ability. Well, as far as I'm concerned, if I can stay in Cu Chi the rest of my time here in Vietnam, I'll be very happy. In case there's like a little, in case there was a little flushing noise in the back, that's the rain. We had just had a very hard rainstorm here, and that was the rain just pounding on our aluminum roofs, on our hooches. I'm surprised at the number of people that have been writing me. I have still about 2 letters a day, maybe a little bit less now. I think some of the people are starting to slack off. And I hope to answer at least my immediate family, mom and dad, my brothers and sisters, and maybe Anime, since she will probably supply you with the tape recorder. I know she will supply you with the tape recorder, let's put it that way, if nobody else has one in our family. I'll try to answer all your questions, all the questions that I get on the tape recorder instead of writing them down in a letter. I think it's a lot easier for me and a little bit more pleasant for you to listen to on a tape recorder than it is to write. I don't know about you, but for me, to sit down and write a 2-page letter takes me about a half hour to 45 minutes sometimes, and when I do have a long list of letters to write, it takes a long time. And maybe this way I can stack up 1 or 2 letters, 2 or 3 maybe, 4, and just answer them all at one clip on one tape, and try and send the tape back and forth at least every week. To be truthful, I'm thinking of sending home another small tape recorder if I can get my hands on it, so that you won't have to bother Anime too much, or every time you want to make a tape recording. But the one I've got here is a Sony. It's a real cute one for $22, and it seems like a real sturdy one too. A lot of the guys said it looks like a good buy. The weather here is starting to cool off a little bit at night, but at the daytime, it's starting to get a little bit hotter, due to the fact that now the clouds in the sky are starting to go away and they don't form like a blanket over the earth this time. And tonight, surprisingly, it rained. Usually the past 2 weeks it's been slowing down quite a bit and hasn't rained that much. Well, I guess I'll finish up the rest of the tape, try asking questions how everything's going back home. Looks like everybody's paying visits to everybody lately back home. Marianne especially, I know that she's been visiting with Roman, Dolores, and Marsha quite a bit from their letters. It seems like they enjoy the visits and enjoy having company. I guess they're just a little bit lonely out in their neck of the woods too. Be it 10,000 miles away or only 10 miles away. I guess everybody enjoys to have a little bit of company. I was very happy to receive a letter from Daddy the other day, about a week ago, I guess it was. And I almost fell off the bunk when I saw who it was from. I noticed the handwriting immediately. I was really happy to receive it. And I wonder if Bobby ever went down to the seashore with Big Norm that one day. If he did, I'm sure he did have a good time. As far as Junior is concerned, whatever happened with that job, did he go down for that interview down near Philadelphia where Richie used to work? That's one question I have to ask him. And how did he like that little letter about Joanne and Dave Boston? I thought it was rather funny. I laughed my head off when I read it myself. I wonder, too, if Bobby's still trying to grow his beard and if he is still cutting down on the smoking. I wish he would. I wish Daddy would, too. That cough, I don't know. I don't smoke myself, as you know. And I hate to see people coughing and practically choking on cigarettes when they know that that's their main problem. I kind of look forward to the tapes that the letters that I receive home from you, Mother. Are you still working full-time at the factory, or are you working part-time? And what can I say? I miss everybody back home. Maybe these tape recordings would just make me a little bit more at ease and relaxed whenever I think about home. I can't really say that I don't know, some of the guys here seem royally homesick. They're not trying to make the most out of it as I am. I told them, try and buy a tape recorder and tape home with your parents, even if you have to buy 2 small tapes and send one home and have one for yourself. At least you'll have a means of communication with the ones that you like back home. But they don't want to do it. They say that, letters are just as good, but you just can't hear their voice. I told them, too, that they should try that radio telephone call like we did that one time. Boy, that was a good experience. I plan to try it again in another month or 2. I don't think the phone bill was that much since it came from Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. I don't think it was cost more than $1 for the whole call. I was really lucky and fortunate to make that phone call. Next time I'm going to, now that I'm not working at the tower or VHF, I'm going to make an appointment in about 2 months, and they will call me when they have a patch through to Fort Monmouth, or who knows, maybe I might call from California next. But it's only for 5 minutes, so I don't think the phone bill will be that much. Well, I think we're slowly running out of tape now, and I wish to thank everybody for the letters that they wrote. I wish that they would keep it up. Say a little prayer and take care of themselves. And each time when I go to communion or in church on Sundays, and sometimes if I have nothing to do, I go on Saturday night, that God will take care of each and every one of you, guard your health, and love you. So that next July, when I come back, all of you will be just as happy and healthy as when I last saw you, July 2nd. As far as I'm concerned over here, Coochie really isn't that bad. And I just hope to God that I can stay here the rest of my tour here in Vietnam. I'm going to try. I've got about 4 more tapes, empty tapes, and I will try to send you another tape in another couple of days, maybe 3 or 4 days. So you should receive them back to back. Not really back to back, but close to each other. And maybe about 10 days from now, I'll be receiving one from you.